Processes. Processes. You've picked the fun one. It's not the really exciting, the flashy, the glitzy bit of marketing, but it is absolutely fundamental. Why am I talking about this? Well, in my day job, over the last 3 years, I've met with more than 500 marketers and marketing teams. And I've noticed a couple of things that have really bothered me. One is that these exceptionally talented and experienced people are being denied their budgets that they've been promised and that they've planned for. It's really frustrating. The second is that, and it's actually worse than this, that at board level and at executive level, there seems to be a massive underrepresentation of marketing professionals in those key decision-making areas, at least in our industry, which is B2B, manufacturing, and so on. It's almost like there's an invisible ceiling where marketing professionals seem to be somewhat dismissed in favor of ops, in favor of finance, and even in favor of sales as well. So I've kind of committed myself to a little side mission, which is to help where I can. I've got kind of unique perspective that I've been the person who's submitting budgets, as well as the person with the keys to the safe. It's tough out there. It's tough. We've done sort of 5 years. We've had the pandemic. Felt like 3 pandemics with the stop-start. We've got 3 wars. We've got unprecedented change amongst governments worldwide. We've got fuel. We've got cost of living. It's a difficult time, so well done. It's not an easy environment to do business in, unless you're BP. If you read that this morning, then it's fine. And within this environment, we find, Forrester have done a study on this, that 63% of marketers were expecting a budget cut this year. Now that seems crazy to me, at a time when businesses are fighting to keep revenue, fighting even harder to grow. Surely it's logical that you invest in your revenue generating activity, you invest in marketing. But instead, what I see in our industries is that nearly always marketing is the first thing to go. It's marketing that gets cut, whether it's standard budgets, whether it's people. So there's a clear disconnect between decision makers at the highest level, the people with budget, and their marketing teams and marketing operations. The good news, I think, is that it's not all out of your hands. You have ways of being able to influence those key decision makers. You have ways of being able to control the narrative and change the dynamic. So how do we start doing that? Well, one of the ways we can do it is to really make sure that our marketing processes and operations are optimized in a way that gains trust from those budget holders and key decision makers. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use lessons from lean manufacturing. Now lean manufacturing was a process of optimization in a manufacturing setting that came out of Toyota in the 50s, 60s and 70s. You can do months-long courses on lean thinking, so I'm not going to get deep into it. But there's a couple of seminal books that you can scan the codes and get access to. By the way, at the end, you can also get the presentation, so these links will be in there. And on every slide, I've added I love reading and love all the kind of marketing reading books. There is extra reading for every topic that I talk about. So what I'd like you to do is pick a process that is a real beefy one within your current marketing operation. Pick one that you feel takes a disproportionate amount of time to complete. And as we go through the 5 takeaways of this session, we're going to apply lean principles pretty loosely as a framework to assess and to fix those processes in a way that can gain trust from your board. Takeaway 1. Bit of a provocative one. Your processes are not good enough, but that's okay. It's like the kind of marketing anonymous. The first step is to accept that you have a problem. If you don't accept, then you can't identify what the problem is and you can't improve it. And the lean principle here is a commitment to continuous improvement. Sounds easy, it's much harder in practice. My tip here is to try and build a no-blame culture, a culture where you fix the process and the system, not the people. And the tricky bit here is you not only need to embed that culture amongst your direct colleagues, or if you're a manager or a director within your team, it's also embedding that culture and getting buy-in from the people above you, the people with the budget. They need to accept and be bought into the idea that your marketing operation and marketing processes are not perfect. They will never be absolutely perfect. There will be failures within the system. But because you have a rigorous commitment to continuous improvement, they can trust that your marketing operation will be running at an elite, at a world-class level, no matter the size of your organization. There's plenty of ways that you can embed cultural changes into your organization. Just a small story from us. In the last 2 years, 18 months, we've gone through a rapid period of growth. And what I found was, naturally within that period, a few small things were slipping through the net. And I felt that whether it was through complacency, whether it was through pressure, that the team weren't really taking the initiative, taking responsibility and accountability for those things. So what we did is every Monday morning, as part of the team meeting, I would ask everyone, and it would always start with me, to pick something, a mistake or an error, the bigger the better, that they'd done in the last week, and to share that with the team. We would champion and celebrate the identification of that error. We would work together to try and understand the source of the failure, the process that led to the error, and then fix it together. And I was really careful that after the meeting, I'd always, speak to people individually or pop them a message just to say, thanks for your bravery in sharing that. It's a commitment to improvement within the team. Not everyone wanted to do it as part of the team and sort of fess up in front of their colleagues, but you don't want to deny all of the colleagues the opportunity to learn from each other's mistakes. By the way, if you've got your own process in your mind, score it quickly. If you are continuously reviewing that process and improving it and it's not staying the same, you get a 2. If you're not doing that at all for your process in your mind, you get a 0. If it's somewhere in between, but there's no regular process or review, you get a 1. Takeaway 2. If value is not defined, everything looks important. And I've noticed in marketing teams that we are quite good at valuing activity. Activity feels important, the amount of effort we put in, the amount of creativity that we have. But the lean principle here is that any process must have an output that is valuable and measurable. If it's not measurable, then the value is questionable. If it's not measurable, then it can't be improved. What do we mean by value? Well, lean says that value is that the output has value to a customer. Now that seems obvious that a customer will get value from whatever you're doing. But in marketing, one really important thing to remember is that you have 2 customers. You have the customer who is buying your stuff, and then you have your internal customer. The customer there is the person with the keys to the safe, the person that's going to give you your budget. So any output that's being produced by your process must align with the value to the customer and the value to that board member, to that executive team, and dig in. Sometimes that feels obvious. It could be, value might be leads resulting in revenue. But what happens if you've got investors who are looking to exit within the next 2-3 years? Maybe value for them could be brand awareness or market share. Don't be afraid to ask your senior team, what is the true value that is important to the decision makers and the people with the budget? Tip here, make sure you're always stating and defining what is the value, who's it valuable for, and how is it measured. If your process has a defined value and you are measuring it with real statistics and real things, then you get a 2. If you haven't defined the value to your process in your mind, 0. If it's somewhere in between, or it's only happening locally in part, then it's a 1. Takeaway 3. If the process changes person to person, it is not a process. Lean principle here is standardization and mapping. Mapping's pretty easy. Is the process documented? Is it mapped properly? Now, what Lean says is that variance creates waste. Variance creates inconsistency. Now, we're in a world where we have a product visualization platform, so creating product visuals. So if every time you create a batch of product visuals, that's happening in a different way, it's taking longer, sometimes taking shorter, sometimes costing more, sometimes costing less. That's what we call in Lean variance, and it's a problem. The tip here is just to ask yourself, if a key person in that process leaves, can their replacement, whether it's internal or a new person, come in and run the process in the same way? If not, and that's not possible within the process in your mind, you get a 0. If they can and everything's beautifully mapped and documented, and they can come in and run the process tomorrow, you get a 2. What we often find is standardization locally. So whether that's in a local team, and then you've got a global team who are doing different things in different teams, or whether it's even within your team, different people doing things in different ways, their bit is standardized, but it's not standardized across the board. All of that leads to variance, all of that leads to waste. Four, every handoff is a delay. I think where marketing, we're extremely inclusive usually in the way that we run our teams. So what ends up happening is you often bring in people that you think might be needed for your process or your project. The problem with that is it creates additional layers, additional steps you don't need. It creates additional approvals, and all of that is waste. So in Lean, we're obsessed with reducing waste wherever you can, of having a frictionless process. We're obsessed with flow. The flow of movement, of output, from the beginning to the end. So the tip here is quite a simple one. When you set up a process or a project, start by asking, what's the absolute minimum number of people that I can include to deliver this process successfully? Start there. Don't start by bringing everyone in. Then, another principle of Lean, you test the simplest path to get the outcome that you want. You test and simulate. You only bring in new people when there is a clear gap in what you're delivering. But you start with the principle of minimum viable people. So the process in your mind, if you have multiple people involved in that process that don't really need to be there, that aren't really adding value, and that's systemic across your process, it's a 0. If it's already running as tight as it can run with the minimum number of people, the minimum number of steps required, then it's a 2. And if it's somewhere in the middle, you get a 1. This one I love. I love this. It's controversial, especially in marketing, where we obviously are proud of our creativity, and creativity doesn't always appear to come from demand in the same way. The Lean principle here is pull. If you create it before it's needed, it will not be used. Now, the way that Lean works here is that there must be a really clear demand for the output of your process to make the process worthwhile and even bothering with. So, in the world of product visualization, if your customer is not buying a product because they don't have a product visual of the product, that's a clear need. If your competitor has better product images than you, and as a result, your customers are potentially going to them or putting them higher up in their shortlist of suppliers, then you have a need. If those two things aren't happening, or something similar, you don't have a need. So what you shouldn't be doing is saying, do you know what? I think we should have some really nice product images. I think we should do an animation. I think we should do some other visual because we want to and we think it will work. In times where budget is tight and you need budget to be approved, it has to come from a really clear demand. My tip here is don't act until you feel the pain. and it's really hard to put up with. It's really hard to go there, but it usually is pretty clear. When you feel that pain because you don't have that thing, that is the time when you introduce the process and you define the output and make sure it's aligned to value. It's takeaway 5. The last one, I'm going to finish up. I'm going to keep this short and punchy. You can download the presentation on the QR code here. You can download the a lean scoring template. This is a template that we've created. The example is product visualization because it's what we do. But it will allow you to score your processes, tell you some of the principles of lean, and if you've been scoring as we've been going along, then you'll be able to assign a score and sort of see where you land. Final takeaway, bonus takeaway. Marketing is not trusted because it is not predictable. If you improve your processes rigorously with a commitment to improvement, if value is aligned to your customers and value is aligned to your internal customer, then there isn't a board or an executive team, if there is actually cash in the bank, that would refuse your budget. If they can be absolutely sure that the process will give an output that is predictable and it aligns, the money's yours. I'll leave it there. Thank you.